Afternoon, everybody. My name is Sinead English, and I'm a careers consultant, and essentially what that means is I help people to get jobs that they really like, as opposed to ones that they don't like, because there's plenty of people doing jobs at the moment that they don't like. So I started this business about 6 years ago. I work with most of the universities and ITs around the country. Maybe some of you have seen me at talks there at one of your colleges before. I also work with companies and work with individuals, all helping them to get jobs. Before I started this business, I was an investment banker in London for 13 years. And I like to tell people that I was an investment banker when it was cool to be an investment banker. And when somebody says, what did you do? And what do you do? And I said, I'm an investment banker. They went, wow. As opposed to now, you just don't tell anybody. And I had nothing to do with the crisis, let me tell you. I was well gone before it ever happened. So what are we going to do for the next 45 minutes or so? We're going to talk about active job search. It's a well-used term. What does it actually mean? So first of all, a question for all of you. What percentage of jobs are advertised? And by advertised, I mean either on jobs websites, you know, jobs.ie and all those kind of ones, with recruitment agencies, newspapers, magazines. So what percentage are advertised? Publicly available information.
20%.
20% advertised? 30% advertised. Okay, yeah, somewhere between 20 and 30%. It's about 30%. For graduates, maybe slightly higher because you have the Grad Ireland website and it's a lot of places where you can go for information. But generally speaking, in around 30% of jobs are advertised. So the question is, if 30% are advertised, what percent aren't advertised? Come on, some maths students here. 70%. Very good. You must be studying maths, are you? Stats, something in those lines. Okay, 70% not advertised. So how do I get one of those jobs?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth. What else? Networking, that big scary word. How else do I get one of those jobs?
Active job search?
Yeah. You've been here before, haven't you? Did you see my slides? Okay. Active job search, exactly. And what exactly does that mean? Actively looking for a job. That's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Okay, so just first of all, you know, a lot of people would think that active job search is this, you know, and I know there's talks on today about LinkedIn, and I would really encourage you to go to them. There's a talk on in this room after me about social networking and using it to get hired. And of course, you need to be on LinkedIn. Facebook, I don't really rate it for getting a job, but anyway, LinkedIn is a very important media for knowing what's out there and getting your profile raised and let everybody know you exist. But can they help you get a job? Of course they can. But it's only half the story, guys. Really is. I see a lot of people and a lot of students who say, yeah, I've got a Facebook profile, and you're kind of sitting waiting there for somebody to ring you up and get, here, God, you have a Facebook profile, here's a job. It doesn't work like that. The two have to work hand in hand. There is something that you have to do if you are actively job searching, in addition to getting yourself on the social networking sites and putting your best professional profile on there. Social networking is a start, but it's never going to replace what? Talking, okay? Real life. Talking to people, telling them about what you want to do, asking them for their advice, asking them, you know, can they put you in touch with anybody, asking them what books they're reading, asking them what websites they're looking at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a couple of rules that I have and advice that I have for active job search. And I'm going to expand each of those in a little bit of detail. And what I'd like to do in between now and the time you leave here in 45 minutes or so is to give you some tips and some tools that you can use when you leave here to go and actively job search. Because I think instinctively we all know that quite a lot of jobs don't get advertised, and we know that it's word of mouth, and we know that we should be out there doing something, but how do you actually start? It's all very well me saying, go and network, go on, off you go. But, you know, give you something that you can actually use. That's what I want to do today. So first of all, active job search. You know, some people have said that this is active job search. Anybody remember this? It was about, oh God, it was about this time last year. What does that photograph signify? Jobless Paddy? Anybody remember him? He was a marketing student. I know maybe some of you guys know him. From Dublin, and he put that big poster up by the Marion Gates in Dublin. Big billboard saying, save me from immigration. And as you can see, you know, there's the Statue of Liberty, and you can see there's a picture of a guy with a Hurley in a suitcase, and Big Ben, and all the sort of landmarks of where people were going to emigrate, or people are still going to. And he profiled himself essentially and got everybody talking about what's this poster about? And you know, the media and Twitter got a hold of it, and you know, the word is that he got 30 job offers. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that he does have a job from it. Okay, so you could take that approach. It cost him about €3,000 to put up the poster. Anybody want to do that? Okay, that is active job search. Would you agree? Yeah. That's been very active, okay? Hugely proactive. Let's try and find something a little bit more manageable. Okay, so there's this. Okay, what are we doing here? Registering with websites, getting all the newspapers, finding out what's going on. How about those, how many of you have registered with jobs websites and you get these daily updates or weekly updates saying 5 new jobs in your industry today? Yeah, okay, that's being active, right? Okay, now what percentage of all available jobs are you actually hitting in that option 2?
30%.
30%. So are a lot of you here spending whatever time you are spending looking for a job in that zone of where the 30% of jobs are? So you're spending 100% your time. This sounds like a maths lesson now, doesn't it? You're spending 100% of your time where there's 30% of the action. So you can imagine, just visualize, and I've used this analogy before, that there is this small pond with very little fish in it. Just about everybody you know is trying to fish in this pond, trying to catch the few fish in there. And then over here, there's this massive pond with loads of fish and hardly anybody's over there because nobody knows about it. Or if they do know about it, they're not really sure how to actually go about and navigate it. So that is the so-called hidden job market. I mean, it's not really hidden, it's not covert. You don't need any secret passwords to get in there, right? You just need to use a little bit of cop on and a bit of courage in order to navigate it and make those calls to people and ask for advice. Okay, so just to give you some context, we'll move on to that, of how companies hire 70% of the time. So if you have seen one of my talks before, you probably will have seen me do this little exercise, so apologies. So just keep quiet so you don't tell people the punchline at the end, okay? So I am the managing director of a company, and all of you guys are working in my company. Aren't I lucky? So you're all working in the company, and one of you has decided that you're going to leave and you're going to go traveling, and that is, say, you. What's your name?
Rosemary.
Rosemary. Rosemary. And how long have you been working here, Rosemary?
2 years.
2 years, and it's been great, hasn't it? Yeah. You love all your colleagues. But you're going traveling. Where are you going, Rosemary?
Canada.
Canada, excellent. So Rosemary's off to Canada. And I'm really gutted about that as the managing director of the company because I'm going to have to replace Rosemary. Okay, and don't think that this isn't happening every day of the week in Ireland. Of course it is. People are leaving their jobs. People are getting new jobs. And I know that because I'm helping them get the jobs. I'm writing the CVs. I'm doing the interview preparation. But do you see in your local newspaper or in the Irish Times or whatever newspaper you read, woman gets job? Do you?
No.
No. Okay, for that woman, is that big news? Is that for that woman who got the job? Is she happy?
Yes.
Of course she's happy. Okay, but it's not good. It's not national news, so you don't hear about it. But it's very important for her. So back to Rosemary. You're leaving. I'm going to have to replace you. The first thing I'm going to do, and this is how most companies hire their staff, is I'm going to look internally. I'm going to look all around here to see if anybody can do your job. So a lateral move across the company, and maybe you've been working in, the Cork office and you want to move to Dublin and you're going to put in for a transfer, or maybe say the area you're working in has gone very quiet and you're actually afraid you're going to lose your job, aren't you? And I say, your bacon is saved here because will you go and work in Rosemary's area, and you go, oh, that's great. And all this stuff goes on under the radar. If you're outside looking for a job, you don't know any of this stuff that's going on. Okay, so what was a vacancy for a split second has now been filled by, say, you moving from Cork to Dublin, end of vacancy. So you're up there and you're looking at the jobs websites and you're looking in the newspapers and every day, and you've no idea that there was this little vacancy and it's closed straight away. Now just assume that there's nobody in this company who can do your job, Rosemary. You must be very good at what you do, are you? Really good, okay? So nobody can do it, or you're all working to full capacity, so I can't move somebody from a different area. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you all, I'm going to say, Rosemary's leaving. Do you know of anybody who could do her job? Can you make some recommendations for me? Except this is Ireland, so I won't have to tell you. Why not? Why won't I have to tell you that Rosemary's leaving? Because everybody knows everything about everybody, right? Okay? And what will have happened, and I speak to company owners and managing directors, and this happens the whole time. Somebody comes into their office and say, excuse me, I hear that Rosemary's leaving. Are you planning to replace her? Because my friend, John, Mick, Mary, has the same qualifications, looking for a job. Will I get them to send in their CV? Okay, now have you ever done that for a friend?
Yes.
Yeah, so you hear of things, you say, you know what, you should probably send your CV in here. Now, do company owners like that sort of approach from their existing staff? Yes, they do. In fact, a lot of companies like it so much they will pay existing staff to recommend somebody. So if you, what's your name? Orla, if you say you're working in the company and you recommend your friend for the job and your friend subsequently gets hired, in a lot of companies you'll get paid up to €5,000. just because I didn't have to use a recruitment agency, I didn't have to put ads in newspapers, go through all that palaver. And you know what? I know you, I like you, I trust your opinion, so I know you're not going to recommend some old dope, okay, who can't do the job, because that will reflect badly on you. Okay? So say this half of the company, you're all not so good, and anyone you recommend, I'm going to go, thanks, but no thanks. Whereas this half of the company, anyone who you recommend, I'm going to go, yeah, I'd love to see their CV. And that's not the old-fashioned Irish way of, you know, nodding and winking in the back door and we won't even interview you properly. I mean, I'm still going to go through the process of interviewing them, but I will have a much shorter group of people from which to choose rather than throwing it out and getting 500 CVs. Okay, which maybe some of you have done in the past. When you see a job advertised, you just send in a CV and hope for the best. Wouldn't it have been so much better to have been a friend of somebody in the company and be on that shortlist straight away? So how do you get yourself on that shortlist? How do you get to be a friend of somebody in Rosemary's company, hypothetically?
Volunteering for some work.
Pardon?
Volunteering for work.
Volunteering for work, letting people know what you can do, right? And letting people know what you want to do. Because I'm not going to think of friends for Rosemary's job if I don't know what it is they want to do. So they'll get, oh, I'll do anything and all this sort of stuff. Like, it's not going to process with me. So you need to be telling people what it is you want to do. Otherwise, when a vacancy comes from whatever place it's going to come from, they're not going to think of you because all they're thinking about with you is wishy-washy, I think they have a degree in business or something, I don't really know what they're doing. Okay, because you haven't made it specific. So just moving up along my triangle here. So network, contacts from existing staff, very popular. Say nobody in this company knows anybody who can do your job. Pretty unlikely. But in that event then, as a company director, I'll start looking outside the company. Maybe I'll speak to other managing directors from, you know, rival companies or places I used to work before, people I know in the industry. I'll say, I'm losing a key member of staff. Can you recommend somebody? And they will recommend a shortlist for me and I will ring them up and that's how it's going to work. And only after, about 70% of the time, only after I've exhausted all of that, am I going to start going towards that pink part of the triangle there, recruitment agencies, ads, websites, because it takes a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of resources. And let's face it, if you want to get your car say your house painted, are you going to ring up the Yellow Pages and look at the very first A1 painters that you see and ring them up and get them out? Or are you going to speak to a few people who've had their house painted recently? Of course you are. Recommendations. I would say about 90% of the business that I get is recommendations from past clients. So advertising, which would be the equivalent of sending in speculative CVs where nobody knows you or nobody has any connection with you, doesn't really work. People need to hear about you from somebody else, recommend you. But in order to do that, they need to know what you can do. So if employers hire in this direction, how do a lot of people, the majority of people, tend to look for jobs? Top down, exactly. So why? I mean, would you all agree that the action is in the green part of the triangle? Most of the action. So why then do we focus a lot of our effort up on the pink part of the triangle?
It's easy.
It's easy, right?
There's not that much we can do about who we know.
There's not about who you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's not a huge amount you can do easily about that.
Okay, easily being the key word. Yeah, it takes a bit more work, a bit more effort, telling people about yourself, telling them what you want to do. Isn't it so much easier to just, you know, you're watching TV, scanning the websites for jobs. Oh, there's one, attach CV, send, bye-bye CV, you know. There's another one, attach CV, send, so long CV. Anybody had that experience? Yeah, okay. It is much more challenging to come up with a plan to get yourself into the green part of the triangle, which is why you're here, right? Because I'm going to tell you the plan. So some rules in order to get yourself into the green part of the triangle. Number 1, networking is not asking people for a job. Give us a job. Okay? If you ask people, you got any jobs going, they will run in the other direction, or they will say something like, yeah, send me in your CV and I'll see how if I can help you with anything, all this kind of stuff. Okay, it doesn't really work. So networking, as somebody said earlier on, which is part of the whole active job search, is not asking people for a job. And if you can remember that, I don't really like the word networking because I think it conjures up images of a big room like this and everyone's standing around with a glass of wine and introducing themselves to people and telling them a bit about themselves, and people feel generally uncomfortable doing that. Okay, networking is telling as many people as you possibly can who you are, what you're good at, and what you want to do. And the more people you tell that to, the more likely it is that someone is going to know somebody, who's going to know somebody, who's going to know somebody, who's in that green part of the triangle, who needs somebody like you. Because you've told them what you want to do. And if necessary, who you are. If they don't know that, you know, through whatever means. So that's the first rule. The next rule, which I have called number 1, is no one can help you get where you want to go, get what you want if you don't know what you want. Okay, nobody can help you get what you want if you don't know what you want. That is the equivalent to me walking out of here after this talk, stopping the first person that I see on that road. I mean, I'm from Limerick, so is that the Marion Road? Okay, and saying, excuse me please, and they say yes. I say, can you tell me how to get to, you know, the building, the long one with the kind of window at the side that's near a garage and it's got the green thing, and you're going, oh my God, why did I have to be the person that she stopped, right? Okay, Mrs. I have no idea what you want because you can't explain it very well. I mean, the equivalent of that is telling people, you know, oh sure, I'll do anything. You know, I've got my degree now, I'll do anything. I'm desperate for a job. You know, if you hear of anything, let me know. It's not going to work. Okay, you have to come up, when somebody says to you, so what do you want to do? You have to be able to tell them something. Not, I don't know, Asher, you know yourself. They don't know themselves and it'll go in one ear and out the other. How are you going to get yourself into that green part of the triangle whereby they hear of an opportunity and they think of you if you haven't told them what you want to do? Perfect example of that, short story, about 3 years ago on the radio. 3 graduates are being interviewed and they're all about a year out of college and none of them have a job. And the interviewer is asking them, you know, what have they done to try and get a job, and what do they study, and generally a bit of chit-chat all about their trials and tribulations of getting a job. And I'm not here saying it's easy to get a job, you know, I'm just saying this was what happened on this particular interview. It was on one of the national radio stations, about 400,000 people listening on the morning breakfast show. So at the end of the interview, the interviewer asked these 3 graduates. He said, okay, if I had a magic wand and I could wave that magic wand, what's your ideal job? What would you absolutely love to do? 400,000 people listening. 2 out of the 3 said what?
I don't know.
I don't know. Not even that. It was, well, maybe this, maybe, you know, noise coming down the radio, okay? The third guy knew exactly what he wanted to do. He laid it out in great detail. He told the listeners what he was doing. He was volunteering with a friend who was doing that job. He was making lots of good contacts. Now, if you're driving to work that morning, listening to these 3 people, who are you going to call if you have any kind of an inkling of a job? Are you going to call the 2 people who didn't know what they wanted? No. Are you going to say, let's sit down, let's explore, let's brainstorm? Of course you're not. You're going to go, excuse me, like, I don't have time for those. Give me the name of the guy, the phone number of the guy who wanted to work in this particular industry. I might know somebody who can help him. Okay, that's networking. That's telling people what it is you want to do. So when somebody asks you what you want to do, you have to be ready with a story. And it could be that varies. Maybe you're not sure. I mean, I was surprised when I started doing this work that in a room full of final year students, you know, on average 1/3 of them had no idea what they wanted to do when they left college. I was going, my God, how can this be? You know, your final year student, now that's just normal, so that's okay. Okay, so if you're unsure of what you want to do, don't make your problem somebody else's problem. They say, so what is it you want to do? Well, I don't know. Have you got any suggestions? I mean, that's not really going to help you, you know, but I'm not really sure. I'm thinking of advertising. I'm thinking of digital media. I'm trying to explore it in a little bit more detail. Do you know much about it? Do you know of anybody I could speak to? That's networking. Okay, people will help you. There may not be a whole lot of jobs advertised at the moment, but I tell you what there is a huge amount of is goodwill. People will help you if you ask them a question that is something other than, got any jobs? Or I don't know what to do, what should I do with the rest of my life? People will go run for the hills when they hear people coming up with stuff like that. So that's the first thing. You have to figure that out, and that's a big one. I'm not belittling that. That is a big one. People will help you as soon as you know what it is you want to do. You give them a question, I wonder, could you help me with this? They'll be able to do it. Number 2, you have more contacts than you think you do. A lot of students would say to me, I don't really have any business contacts, you know, I'm not from Ireland, I don't have this, that, all that kind of stuff. There are lots of places that you can look for contacts, and I'll show you some of them in a minute. Third one, it's far easier to stay passive and reactive. Now that may look like a contradiction, but reactive means seeing an ad, I'm going to send in a CV for that, waiting for something to drop in your lap and then responding to it. It's far easier to do that than to go down this road of networking and active job search. If this was the easy option, everyone would be doing it. There would be no hidden job market. Okay? It takes a bit more guts, takes a bit more planning, takes a bit more organizing, takes a bit more, okay, deep breath, I'm going to ring this person, it's a friend of my sister's boyfriend, I'm just going to ring him, they said that I could ring him, I'm just going to ask him a question. But what it is, he does love to meet him for 10 minutes to talk about his job. Okay, you're not going to call and say, get any jobs going at your company. Okay? It's easier to do the other thing. Stay responding to the ads. You and everybody else. Chances are, the success rate is a lot lower. Dust off your research skills here. Anybody of you doing research at college, well, don't give up the skills just yet. You're going to need them. And it helps if you're a bit inquisitive or a bit nosy. You hear of something going, you hear of a company setting up a new factory somewhere, you hear of a company that's won an award. Enterprise Ireland, the amount of companies that it is funding at the moment is phenomenal. All these startup companies, there's one link to every university and every institute of technology. There's a startup, like a creche for companies essentially, in every university and every IT. Get a list of those companies. Who are they? And more interestingly, get a list of the ones who've been there before. For the last 5 years, 10 years, who've now fled the nest. They're much bigger companies all over the place. I was in UL last week. There was a big reception going on. A company that started 2 UL graduates 6 years ago, funded by Enterprise Ireland, started with just a couple of people working for it, had made a big announcement they were hiring 50 people over the next 3 years. So if you say, in this case, a UL graduate who maybe did the same course as those two startup guys, and you've got a good chance straight away of getting in to have a chat with them, just because you've got that connection. So it's, it is being nosy and putting it all together and doing a bit of research, which is why, again, it's easier to keep looking at the ads. But the success rate, as you will see in a minute, is a lot higher doing this. Not all companies have vacancies, but believe me, they all have problems. How would you go about solving one of their problems? So, perfect example of that was I met a company owner about 3 months ago who employs about 100 people, Irish company, and we were both on an interview panel together and we got chatting at one of the breaks, and I was saying to him, have you ever had people approach the company in this way? So it's not the, dear sir, madam, please find attached my CV, which is a proactive approach, you could say. They weren't advertising a job. Somebody off their own bat did this and wanted to go and see if they had any jobs. Not that approach, but somebody had just written a one-page letter to you as the managing director and had mentioned something that had happened recently. So for instance, this company had won a big export order, or this company had won an award, or this company had set up a new factory, or this company had bought another business. So something important to the company, and they received a letter from somebody looking for a job, one page, just commenting on this, saying you noticed it was very interesting, they had a background in XYZ, something that may be suitable to the company, or maybe they've done a project in college, something that may be interesting to the company, and they would love to talk to them about it. No CV attached. Okay, you're not saying, please find attached my CV. Just a different approach whereby it is clear to the person reading the letter, i.e. the company owner or the managing director in this case, that you know a little bit more than the company name and the company address, which is often the feeling that companies get when they get these speculative letters in. You've taken the time to do a little bit of research about the company. So he told me that in 5 years that has happened twice. And what happened in both of those occasions? And I'm not making this story up.
They got the job?
Yes. He invited them in for a chat and he offered them a job. Not there and then. Okay, they got in, they started talking. He had them work there for a couple of weeks for nothing. That was his approach. So did you try it out and see? Will you try us out? We'll try you out. And in both of those occasions, those people were hired. So what is so different about that approach than the traditional approach of being proactive, seeing that there's a company in your area, putting together a CV, dear sir, madam, please find attach my CV, and sending it off? What's the difference?
Focusing on what the company wants.
Focusing on what the company wants. Bit of flattering of egos, perhaps. Paying attention to the company. Showing them what you can do for them. That you know a little bit about them. Now, does that sound like common sense? Why do so few people do it?
Just be brave enough to do it in the first place.
Yeah, brave enough to do it. Okay, now what's the worst thing that can happen? Will they ignore you, or even worse than that? What would be worse than that? They say no. Thank you, but we're not interested. Okay? Now, has that ever happened to you in your life before?
Yeah.
It has? Are you okay about it? You got over it, okay? Has anybody here in this room, has anybody ever said no to them in their life? Yeah. Yeah. Some people, no. There's some people with charmed lives that nobody's ever said no to them. My gosh, okay? Most people, somebody somewhere along the line has said, no, you cannot. No, you can't have that. You're not doing that. I'm not doing that. Of course it happens. That's the worst thing that can happen. What's the best thing that can happen? They say yes, and you get a job out of it. Okay, and because so few people do this, the effect, believe me, on companies when they see this approach is huge. They go, wow, this person, you know, they actually know what we do. So, not all companies have vacancies, but they all have problems. Another example was this IT company that I've done some work for. They have a website which is pretty, it's been fixed now, but up until about 6 months ago it was pretty abysmal. It was really not a very good website for an IT company. And I know web design is a different skill, but anyway, it was a pretty abysmal website because this was a small company growing really quickly. They didn't have time to focus on fixing their website. And the company owner told me that he got so many CVs in from people. Dear Sir, Madam, please attach my CV. I'm an IT this, IT specialist, all the rest of it. Nobody, not one person said to the owners of the company or wrote a letter saying, I've noticed that your website maybe isn't as good as it should be. I could come in for a week. I've got a qualification in web design. Done some stuff like this before. Could help you with it for no cost. Love to hear from you. He said, had somebody done that, not only would he have bitten their hand off, he probably would have given them a job at the end of it. So it's taking a different approach. Maybe it's a bit more gutsy. Maybe it's a bit more, oh God, what if they say no? I feel a bit stupid. Just try it. The worst thing that can happen is they'll say no. Yeah.
To me, you might give your hand away. Like, what if you actually, you know there's a problem, and they just tell you and they don't respond, they just fix it. And you're like, well, I didn't get any credit for what happened.
Okay, well, that can happen. I mean, it's not always going to happen. So I think it's worth the risk. Fine, if they then fix it, you get some, I suppose, moral satisfaction thinking, well, I spotted that first. Okay, you don't get a job out of it, but it probably won't happen a second time. So what else have we got in here? People will ask you, people will help you as long as you don't ask them for a job. Okay? Think of anything you can possibly do, and I've got a slide here in a minute, I'll show you some examples. Okay, you really want to ring this person up, and the only thing you can think of is, give me a job. Have you got any jobs going? You've got to get rid of that one. Can't ask that one. Cannot ask for a job. What else can you ask for? What else can you ask for? Advice. Would they mind looking over your list of companies that you're looking to approach for work? Bit sneaky, but it's the same thing, right? Okay. What advice can they give you? When I worked in investment banking, there was this magazine that we got every week called the International Financing Review, IFR. Big yellow magazine. Every deal that was done globally was in there. Everybody was moving, bank, institution, it was like the gospel or the Bible for working in the City of London. Since I've left the City of London, have I ever seen that? No. No. Why? Because it is sort of an in-industry publication. There are in-industry publications for every industry that you guys are in. So what are they? You don't know because you're not working in there yet. Ask somebody who's working in there. That could be another question. What should I be reading? Are there any good websites? And they might tell you things. You go, oh my God, I didn't know all this stuff existed. So now you're acting like somebody in the green part of the triangle. You haven't asked them for a job, but subconsciously what you've also done is sort of showcased yourself. And they're going to say, so you finished college now? Yeah, what do you want to do? And that's when you have to be ready with number one, right? Okay. You can't go to, well, anything, yourself. I'll do anything. Then you're kind of falling down this, snakes and ladders. You're back down again. So people will help you. If you hear of anything, let me know. How many of you have used that? Nobody here is going to put their hand up now. They're going, oh my gosh, you're going to bite my head off if I say that, okay? If you hear of anything, let me know. In my opinion, is one of the most useless phrases in the English language. Because people will go, I will let you know. Of course I will. And it's not that they think, what's your name?
Sarah.
Sarah was not very good or can't do her job or wouldn't be good. They just forget. There's so much going on in people's heads. You, Sarah, are not the first thing they think of in the morning. Maybe for some people you are, but for most of the people working, you're not. So you're kind of going, oh, well, now they've told me that if they hear of anything, they'll let me know. But they've already forgotten about you. And you're at home going, I'm waiting for the phone call. I mean, it's never going to come. Okay, so that's actually one thing that LinkedIn is really, really good for. You know, in those status updates that you can put in, you know, you've got all these connections in LinkedIn. You don't need to keep ringing them up going, hello, reminder, I'm still looking for a job. But when you put in a status update, maybe once a week or so, it does sort of jolt the memory. Oh yeah, I forgot about her. Or, gosh, yeah. You know, not that you're going to say, still looking for a job, okay? You're going to say something a bit more value added, like interesting article or attended conference or something like that, okay? So a bit more value added. So if you hear of anything, let me know. Don't use it. You may feel like you're being proactive and sort of, you know, shaking the trees a little bit, but it doesn't really work, in my experience. Here are some places that you can look for information outside of just the, you know, advertised jobs. As I said, the top right-hand corner there, college innovation incubator companies. Every IT, every university has a whole list of them. Startup companies. They may hire 1 or 2 people a year to start off with. That could be you. Okay? You're not looking necessarily for the company that's hiring hundreds of people, but in most of these cases, these opportunities, you're going to have to create them yourself by writing them a letter saying you're interested in what they're doing. Maybe you've got some parallels to what you studied in college. You'd love to drop by and have a chat. That's all you're asking. You're not saying, please see my CV and keep me on file and all this kind of stuff. You haven't asked them for a job, therefore they can't send you back the normal response. We have put your CV on file and we'll let you know if anything interesting comes up. Because you haven't asked them. You just asked them, you'd love to have a chat with them. Different approach. Business networking websites. Okay, that's LinkedIn primarily. Conferences and seminars. If you were looking for information about who the players are in your industry, find out what are the main conferences, what are the main seminars that those companies attend every year. Again, it's a bit, you know, back to what I said, you have to be a bit inquisitive, a bit of a CSI going on here, career scene investigator, to look up this stuff. Who are the companies who attend to the conferences? Who are the people in those companies? Do you know of any of them? Cross-check it in LinkedIn. Did any of them attend your university? Any of them attend your college? That's an approach that you can use to contact them. You know, be brave about this stuff. What have you got to lose? Nothing. A no every now and then? I mean, we can all put up with that. So can you see why it's a lot easier to stay in the pink part of the triangle? Okay? Your alumni. I am constantly going on about this to all of the colleges that I speak to. Your alumni are a huge source of potential opportunity for you. Wind the clock on a couple of years and you have got your ideal job, your dream job in some company, you're loving yourself, you're loving your job, life is good. And you get an email from somebody who is finishing the course that you did 3 years ago. So they're just in their final year, and it's a very polite email saying that maybe they found you on LinkedIn or they got your name from the alumni office and they would love to have a conversation with you about how you got your job or if you had any advice for them. Okay, it's all very nice. You're not going, get a job, who should I ring? Okay, you as the person 3 years out, loving your job, what are you going to do? If they say, would it be okay if I rang you one day this week to have a quick conversation? Generally speaking, are you going to go, no, go away, I don't want to have anything to do with you? Are you going to go, yeah, sure. What do you want to know? Which are you?
Yeah, sure.
Of course you are. Okay, because you know what? People love talking about themselves. They love it. So brilliant, wise, super fantastic, successful person. How did you get your job? Really interesting, you know. So you did the same course as me and then did you go straight into it, or, you know, what advice could you give me? Anybody here go to Trinity? A couple of you, you know, Trinity actually has this formalized online in that current students can reach out to alumni and ask them those questions. They've actually formalized it in a sort of an online system. Doing what I'm explaining here, you can do it online and get in touch with people. They have a database of all of the graduates and the industries they're working in, and a tick beside the name if they're willing to take calls from recent graduates looking for advice. So all of this stuff goes on. It's just a matter of reaching out and knowing where to look. So I'm just going to do that. So here are some places. Remember I said you have more contacts than you think you do. Fellow students, ex-work colleagues. Any of you do co-op or do intra or do placements as part of your course? Summer jobs. If you've worked anywhere before, think of all the people that you met. Who from those people could help you? Who of those people could you have a conversation with? Maybe they know somebody. That's networking. Fellow volunteers, somebody mentioned volunteering here. Fantastic way if you can volunteer in an industry in which you would like to work. You know, some people have a very negative view about that. They say, oh, I'm not doing anything if I'm not going to get paid for it, you know. The flip side of that is, well, you're going to take you a lot longer to get a job in that area. If you're volunteering and 1 day a week or an hour a week or whatever it is in the area that you would love to work in, you're showcasing yourself every minute that you're there. And if you do a good job, people will do you favours. If you say, gosh, you know, I'd love to know, do you know anybody else I could speak to? Be really interested in getting into this industry, love to have a chat with you. Of course they're going to reciprocate and give you some names. Your lecturers, your careers office, huge source of information there. Sports club members, your alumni, professional advisors, family friends, customers, neighbours, sports club members. I mean, think wide about this as to where the contacts can come from. And don't be afraid to approach people. You know, what's the worst thing that can happen? They say no, okay? We've all been there. So as an example of things that you could ask them, because you can't ask them for a job, right? So I just did up some sample ones here. So say for instance, I don't know if you can all see this, but here's the first one is Joe Ryan. He's a marketing manager at Superbrands. He's a member of my college alumni. He's a colleague of a friend of mine. So, you know, he's not a close friend. I kind of know he's a friend of a friend. So what am I going to ask this guy? I'm going to call, I'm going to ask to meet him to discuss a project I'm working on for college. Say I need to survey 10 marketing companies. Now this could equally work if you're putting together a list of companies you want to apply to. And he's working in that industry. Would you mind taking a look over my list? Am I missing any off the list? Are there some here that shouldn't be here? What advice can you give me? You're in the industry. I'd love to get your view. Now if you were Joe Ryan and you saw somebody's list, how would you react to it? List of companies that you're either going to target for a research project or that you're going to target for looking for a job. You are Joe Ryan, you're working in the industry and you're looking at this list and there's a few goodies, a few baddies, and you've got a few in your head that aren't on the list. What would you do?
Correct it.
Of course you would, yeah. You know, if the person is known to you, fine. If they're a total random stranger and they call you up, you're going to go, sorry, you know, you're not going to do that. You're going to correct it, you're going to give some advice. But the nice thing about that approach is you've actually given Joe Ryan something that he can do. Yeah, sure, yeah, what do you want to know? You haven't asked Joe Ryan for a job. You haven't asked him, if you hear of anything, let me know. Okay, you haven't asked him to send in your CV to somebody. I mean, it could even be that you ask Joe Ryan, look, Joe, you're working in this company, this massive multinational. I want to speak to somebody who's working in this division. And these big multinationals can be like big, you know, impenetrable places. You don't know where to, you see, send it into HR, you might as well be sending it into a black hole. Okay, so what are the divisions? How does it get structured? Who hires from here? Getting that inside information is invaluable. Asking somebody who's working in the company. You're not asking him to do you any favors. You're not asking him to get you a job. You're just asking him to help you sort of navigate through the process. Most people will help you with that. The second one here I have, another example, is I said it's Mary Jones. She's head of the local chapter of CIPD. She's a trainer of my hockey team. Okay, so that's how I know her. I've made these ones up, obviously. So I've said that as part of my degree in business studies, I've done a particular bit of research, and I was wondering it might be of use to her member companies. So you're giving something for nothing. How do you think Mary Jones is going to react? She's going to say, come to the conference, okay, because you're reading it on there. She's going to say, that's great, yeah, it might be of use, that's great, thanks for sending it in. So what have you done by doing that, by interacting with Mary Jones in that way? What have you done?
Raised your profile.
Raised your profile, shown her what you can do, given her a bit of history about yourself, given her a bit of direction about where you want to go, and you've actually helped her. So is there anything along those lines that you think that you can do and that you know people that can help you? Of course there is. So your aim before you leave here today, or maybe by tomorrow, is to come up with the names of 3 people that you know can help you. And what action would you put beside their name? And it's not going to be what? Get a job. Yeah, okay. Hassle them for a job. If you hear of anything, let me know. Because that's the way to unlock this hidden job market. Back to that triangle. You want to get yourself into the green part of the triangle. This is how you do it. By asking smart questions, by asking people to help you, by asking people for their opinion, asking for advice. And people will give it. People love to be helpful. Most of the time. I mean, every now and then you're going to get the odd one who says he doesn't respond. And that's the other thing. I mean, you have to be quite energetic and a bit persistent. You know, not everybody's going to get back to you the first time you send an email, the first time you call them. Oh, sure, gosh, yeah, what do you want to know? Great, I'll drop everything, you know. They may take them a while. You might have to leave a couple of messages. Don't worry about that. Somebody asked me once, you know, well, how long should you keep leaving, how many times should you keep leaving messages before you kind of get the impression, you know, maybe they don't want to speak to me, you know. So my flippant answer at the time was, will you keep leaving messages until they tell you that they don't want to speak to you? Okay, now that's probably my investment banking side of me coming out. I think 2 to 3 times. Leave messages. Don't just leave one and then sulk that they didn't get back to you. Because people are busy. And, you know, if you want something, you have to do the running. So, you know, hi, this is Sinead, just calling you. I'd love to talk to you about X, Y, Z. Maybe what I like to do is send an email first, just to tee up what I want to speak to them about, and then follow up with a phone call. If you don't get them, say, okay, I'll give you a call tomorrow around the same time. Don't say, here's my number, call me. Okay, but leave your number, of course, just in case they want to call you. But you're the one who wants something, you do the running. Okay, now again, that might be a bit, oh God, this is all too much hard work. I'll just go back to responding to the ads. Okay, and that's an approach. The success rate, however, is, you know, a bit different between the two, because being generous, those dear sir, madams, responding to the ads, about a 1 in 60 chance, not of getting a job, but of getting to the next level, of even hearing back, of kind of getting some hello, is there anybody out there? A 1 in 60, maybe of getting an interview. You've about a 1 in 5 chance of these proactive approaches of getting to meet that person. And not included in that is the, oh, you know what, I'm probably not the right person, you should speak to my friend Mary. Okay, 1 in 5. 1 in 5, 1 in 60. Okay, you don't get anything for nothing. You have to put in a bit of an effort. Do you think it's worth a bit of effort? Okay, so do you think you might try it? Okay, so what are you going to do by the end of the week? Today's what, Wednesday? By the end of the week, list of 3 people and what you're going to ask them. Just start. I mean, you know, you may not actually end up where you think you're going to end up when you start on this process, but I can absolutely guarantee you one thing. You'll end up in a place that's better than where you are now. Because people will know more about you and you'll get a bit more confidence. The first time you do it, you may pick up the phone and put it down 5 times. Oh God, I can't ring her. I can't, oh, I'll just make a cup of tea. Oh no, I won't, oh, you know. Just do it. You know what? Just keep telling yourself, what is the worst thing that can happen? They can say no. You know, we'll get over that. They're not going to come and chop your legs off. Okay, well, I hope not. Okay. So just to summarize then, creative job hunting, the hidden job market, networking, it's not just Facebook. Okay, Facebook, I don't think is a whole lot of use in getting a job. List your potential contacts and what you can ask them. I mean, use that grid, you know, contact, action, and then keep a contact log. Because I don't know, if you're anything like me, you'll go, God, did I leave a message or did I actually speak to them? I can't remember now. Okay, if you're dealing with a few different people. And before that, you're going to have to research, right, well, who are the people I want to speak to? And a great way, say if there's a couple of companies that you would love to work for, maybe Paul will touch on this when he does the LinkedIn talk, a few companies that you'd love to work for, but you think, right, I don't know anybody in those companies, and I'm not going to send in a dear sir, madam, because that's going to go in the bin, okay? Put the company name into LinkedIn, and that LinkedIn will tell you how you're connected to that company. So it might say, Sinead English, you have no first degree connections in that company, so none of your connections work at that company. But did you know that 14 of your connections know somebody at that company? And it tells you who they are. So it could be that my first connection, you know, say an ex-colleague of mine in an investment bank knows somebody, and that's very useful because then you can go to that person and say, well, how well do you know this person? I'd love to just ask them a question about who's the right person to send my CV to. Even that is hugely important, rather than the HR department. Black hole. Okay? So list your contacts, what you can ask them, know what you want. If you go to all this trouble of lining these people up and picking up the courage and ringing them up, and then they're going to go, so what do you want to do? Don't go, blah, 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 you know, whatever, you know. Can't think of anything. Okay, you have to have something specific that you want to ask them. Share information. And you may hear of opportunities or hear of things. If you see a job that, you know, a company's setting up somewhere, email it on to people, say, oh, this might be of interest to you. I mean, that's being a good networker. Don't wait until the last minute to try and get information from people. If you see something that you think is of useful to somebody else, pass it on. Sort of sharing information. As I said here, get noticed, take a different approach. Sending in the one-page letter takes a bit more time, and at the end of the letter you always say, you know, I will call you in the next few days to follow up. Don't leave the ball in their court. You're the one who wants something, you tell them you'll call and follow up. And if you say I'll call in the next few days, call in the next few days. Don't put it off for 3 weeks. And then call, they go, sorry, who are you? Forget the letter. Yeah, I sent you this letter. Information is power. The more information you have about what's going on, the better. So make sure you're subscribing to the right websites, industry, e-zines, conferences coming up, some great websites, your Business and Leadership and SiliconRepublic.com, both of them I find very good websites for finding out what's going on. If there's conferences coming up in a particular industry, they list them there. You can click on it, see who's speaking. You can see where they were working before. Just lots of info, which is useful, and which other job seekers don't do. They tend to just look at the surface. So you're going to be digging down a little bit. And you will really impress the people at the companies if you do that.